Students, how good are you at getting started and then finishing all of the tasks on your to-do list? Given it's a new year, might be a good opportunity to reset some of your task initiation routines, and we're going to talk about 2 game changers in this video. Educators, I bet this will be useful for the students you work with too, so let's dig in. Hi everyone, I am Gretchen, the founder of the Anti-Boring Learning Lab, where we obsess about science-backed study skills and executive function strategies that every student needs to thrive. And every adult too, because what I'm about to talk about today is, I think, the single most popular thing that I teach students that any adults in the space around me, so that's parents when I give talks at schools, teachers when I give talks at schools, or educators in my community, even my assistant who's been with me for several years now says that this particular tip has really changed their life and they practice it regularly. And I do too. And so because it's January and it's the beginning of a new year, I want to remind us of this simple way to get yourself to take action on the things on your to-do list. And though I'm going to share an addendum, an addition, something I haven't really talked about much in my Anti-Boring Learning Lab community because I'm just now realizing this is a missing link in my own habits. And so I'm going to spend 2024, that's the year we're in, right, trying to get this new tweak down. So what are we talking about? First of all, we're talking about routines. There is one routine that I think makes or breaks people's ability to take action, and that is what I have historically called the setup routine. The setup routine is what you do to prepare yourself to do your work. If you're a student, it's often what you do when you walk in the door to your house after school. You go up to your desk, you put your backpack down, you get out your planner, and you kind of focus around what needs to happen that night. Of course, it doesn't have to happen when you come home. It could, and it would be even better if you did it at school before you came home. But regardless, it is all the things you do before you sit down and do work. And I made a little flow chart. This is a new image I'm playing with right now. So if you're one of the educators in my Anti-Boring Learning Lab, this will look new. But here's the cycle. We make our to-dos. Once we've done that, we prep all the supplies we need in order to do the to-dos. So that can, for my work, that often looks like opening tabs on the computer. But for students, it could look like that. It could be opening tabs on your tablet or iPad if you have one, the things that you're going to need to do the work. Or it could simply mean opening up notebooks to the right pages to start your reading, or spiral notebooks to the page you want to do your notes on. That's the really important part, is that you do everything you need to do up until the point where you get started with the work. So that's what I mean by prep supplies. Then we do the work. Now, historically, these 3 things are the only things that I've talked about with students and with the educators I train. And actually, that's the feedback that I've gotten, is it makes all the difference. If I'm struggling to get started on something, if I do a setup routine, if I just tell myself in my mind, you don't have to do the work, honey, you just have to do your setup routine, get it all set up, then I'm likely to actually just go ahead and take action, since a lot of the tabs are open and I'm ready to go. And I've kind of warmed up my neural pathways for thinking about the work. And so they're ready to take that next step, often, not always, but often. So what's the missing part then? Here's what I'm realizing. I don't take time at the end of a work session to reflect and celebrate, and then make the next list of to-dos based on what I didn't get done. I do the work and then I quit, and then I am so excited to go eat dinner or go out with friends or go make a phone call or whatever that I never do this last bit. And you know what? This is a bad habit of mine. I have pretty strong executive functions, but the executive function that is the worst for me is the one related to finishing and completing tasks. When the work is done, I think I'm done. But the next day, I procrastinate and procrastinate and procrastinate getting started because I don't quite remember where I left off yesterday. And so that's why this particular moment is so important to reflect, to celebrate. How do I celebrate? I celebrate by checking things off lists. I got that done. I go, oh, look, I got done more than I thought. Or, oh, I didn't get as much done as I thought, but I did get a few things done. And so what still needs to be done? Get that on the to-do list for the next day's work session, or the next work session if it's later that day. Now, if you get good at doing this, I don't know whether I should call this the wrap-up routine. I maybe should call it setup and wrap-up. But the tricky thing is the setup and the wrap-up overlap with each other, because I might make a list of to-dos that I need to do at the end of a work session during my wrap-up, but then during my setup routine the next day, I should review that list, maybe even adjust it. Maybe the priorities will have shifted, so I still need to make a new list of to-dos, or at least highlight the ones that I'm going to get done during this work session, and then prep supplies, and then do the work. Does that distinction make sense? It's subtle, right? It's a wrap-up, but it's also a setup for the next time. So this section here happens before you do the work, and it's the setup. And this happens here after you do the work, and it's the wrap-up. But there's some intersection between the two, right? So I strongly, students recommend that you consider these two things and ask yourself, what is the routine that would really take your ability to get your work done to the next level? Would it be to learn how to do a setup routine? Or would it be to really practice a wrap-up routine at the end of that setup routine? As I've said, my goal is the second one, the wrap-up one. I'm really good at the setup routine after years and years and years of practice. But what do you think? What's good for you? That's what I want you to reflect about, and feel free to actually get some accountability by posting below and say, oh, I actually think I need to do the wrap-up routine because blah, 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 blah. This is how I think it will help me. Set your intentions. Let us know. I'll probably comment because I also have a goal in 2024 of interacting with more and more students on YouTube. So maybe I'll see you down there in the comments. Hey y'all, don't forget to like this video if you got something of value, and subscribe to my channel. I mean, why not have me show up in your feed all the time, right? Certainly helps me out to know exactly what kind of content I should make more of. So thanks in advance. Educators, I love ending these videos with little practical scripts that you can use when you are talking to the students in your life about the topic at hand. And one of my favorite questions is coming up. Let's pretend that you have shared the idea of the setup and or the wrap-up routine with your students. And let's pretend that either if you're a classroom teacher, maybe you even assigned them to play around with it. And if you're a coach, you might have set an intention that, hey, well, you wouldn't have, right? The student would have said what they're willing to work on, but the intention is there. I'm going to work on the setup routine or a certain aspect of the setup routine, or I'm going to work on the wrap-up routine. Then here's the question you can ask them the next time you see them. How did it go? What did you notice about blah, 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 whatever their intention was? Now, this might seem like no duh, like, ugh, that's not a very interesting question, Gretchen. Why are you sharing this? But actually, it's very important for students to get practiced at what I like to call the notice and do loop. You do a little something, you notice about it. You do a little something, you notice about it. And you do that over and over and over until you get so practiced at reflecting about your experiences and then growing as a result of that reflection. This is part of what we think of as metacognition, right? Being able to think about your thinking and think about your behavior. And we really want to build students who have excellent metacognition. And so getting practice at this word notice and getting practiced at articulating what did you notice about X, Y, and Z is a really wonderful question to have in your coaching back pocket to ask all the time. There's so much that I could say about this because there are lots of different categories we can notice in. And I invite you to join my anti-boring learning lab where we have a whole mini credential all about how to talk to students, how to actually elicit rich noticings in them. And I invite you to come learn alongside all of us. If you're not ready to dive into that, you can also head over to the Anti-Boring Learning Lab /library. And I have lots of free goodies for you there, including something called the Consent Burger, which is another formula, I guess you could say, I have about how we talk to students, and that's available for you for free there. antiboringlearninglab.com/library. And of course, I'll be here in your feeds next week with another nugget. See you then.